For the past 4 months, I've been transforming this island in hardcore Minecraft. There's just one remaining area that needs to be filled with builds, so my idea is to make a cozy village where we can display every single flower in the game. Collecting every flower might sound easy, but there's a few that are a bit more complicated to get than you might think. Anyways, let's start by getting the easy ones first, like poppies, dandelions, cornflowers, azure bluets, and oxeye daisies. These ones are all pretty common, so I was able to find a bunch pretty easily. After that, I went over to a flower forest biome where I was able to collect all 4 colors of tulips as well as lilies of the valley. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention, my goal is to collect at least a stack of each of the flowers just to add to the challenge a little bit. With that in mind, I went on to collect a stack of each of the 2 tall flowers. Moving on to some of the less common ones, I made my way over to a cherry blossom biome and grabbed some of the super cute pink petals. I flew over to a swamp next, as it's the only place where blue orchids grow. Also, this is my favorite flower, so shout out to blue orchids. Another biome dependent flower is the new eye blossoms that came with the Pale Garden update, so I went over to one of those next. And I couldn't really find very many, but luckily we can just use bone meal to grow more. Last but not least, I found some wildflowers, which are the newest flower that's been added to the game at the time I'm making this video. That took a little over an hour, but we now have all of the relatively easy flowers to find. There's still 2 more that we need to get, but they're going to be a little bit more involved, so first things first, let's head into the nether and over to a fortress since we need to get some wither skulls. One of the 2 flowers we still need is wither roses, and the only way to get them is by having a wither kill another mob, so we're gonna have to get 3 skulls so we can spawn a wither. I do have fortune 3 on my sword, but I know these are pretty rare regardless, so hopefully this doesn't take us a million years. How come as soon as I'm actually trying to find some wither skeletons, they're just nowhere to be found, yet when I'm not trying to look for them, they're just everywhere. Give us a skull. Nope. Where the heck are all the wither skeletons? I can't find any. Is this whole fortress just empty? Like what? Okay, maybe one of these 2. We'll drop one. Ow. And nope. There was barely any wither skeletons spawning at that other fortress, so I came over to another one and hopefully we'll have a bit more luck. It's officially been over an hour and I still haven't gotten a single skull, so hopefully one of these guys will drop one. Oh, finally. That took over an hour, but we finally got our first skull. I really hope the next 2 do not take us that long. Oh, finally. This clip right now is at 2 hours and 37 minutes. That's how long it's taking me to get 2 skulls. You gotta be kidding me. Chicken jockey. Finally, skull number 3. It's officially been over 3 hours since I started farming these skulls. That was way more of a grind than I thought it'd be. Honestly, I thought that was going to take maybe like 20-30 minutes or something like that, but at least we got it, so finally the grind is over. But anyways, let's head back to our house as we have some more resources to gather. Back at our house, I crafted up a few different items we're going to need to build a wither rose farm, such as dispensers and an observer. We're also going to need a bunch of jack-o'-lanterns, so I went over to our pumpkin farm, sheared them all, and collected them with my axe. I needed a few more, but luckily I found more pumpkins in our storage room, so I took a minute to shear those ones as well. The last thing we need is a bunch of snow blocks, so let's try to make just like a temporary little snow farm here. I think if we do something like that, and then if we do snow block, hopefully this is going to work. Yeah, perfect. But if we go like this, we should be able to just get a bunch of snowballs that we can turn into snow blocks. And just like that, we should have all the materials we need to build the wither rose farm. Before we get to building it though, I do want to try to just fix up my tools a little bit here. I have a mending book that I want to add to my shovel. Fortunately, we got a bunch of levels killing all of those withers. And I don't have an actual XP farm set up yet, unfortunately, but I do have a little idea that might work. Heading over to our blacksmith, let's go downstairs to where we have this auto smelter, and all of these furnaces should have a bunch of XP stored up inside of them, which I'm hoping will repair some of our tools here. I think it's probably repairing our armor and our pickaxe first, but yeah, now our shovel is getting repaired, so that's perfect. But anyways, let's put all of these furnaces back and we can go build the wither rose farm. We're gonna build the wither rose farm in the end, so first let's head into the nether and let's just follow this end stone here, which will take us over to another portal, which will take us over to the stronghold. And you might have already guessed, but we're going to be building the farm underneath of this bedrock here. Alright, so the first thing we need to do is dig a staircase under this and build a little hole underneath of the bedrock. And let's just quickly try to find 0, 0, should be right here, and we'll just mark this with a block like that. Boom. And then we just got to make this room a bit bigger. It's going to be 3 by 3 with this block here in the center, so just like that. And then I think we got to break these ones right here as well, so it should be looking just like this. And then we'll go slab, slab, slab. Then we're just going to dig out a little tunnel to the side of it and break that up to the surface there. Perfect. Back up at the top, let's break this block here, and we'll place our dispenser. This bottom one we're going to fill with shears, and the top one will be our carved pumpkins. Then we just got to place a couple blocks here, a couple there, and then we're going to do a trap door just like that. All right, now it's time for the scary part. Let's place down our soul sand. Hopefully that is right. I'm actually so scared. The wither should be stuck, I hope. Okay, I messed this up a little bit. We got to do it quick before the wither dies. Redstone dust there, lever here, flick that twice, perfect. Okay, this is super chaotic, but we're making a bunch of snowman, and they should be dying to the wither and making a bunch of wither roses in there. Okay, let's hop down, see if it's working. Hopefully I don't die. Did I get some? Yes, wither roses, perfect. That's awesome, it's working. Okay, so I ran the farm for about 20 minutes or so, and as you can see, I have a whole bunch of wither roses, probably more than we're ever going to need in this world. So I think with that, let's actually kill the wither and get the star. A little cheesy, but just like that, the wither is defeated. Just gotta sort through all these snowballs, and there we go. We got the nether star, which is absolutely awesome. But with that, let's head back home. And I'm in the middle of nowhere, aren't I? I'm not gonna lie, that was a way bigger grind than I thought it was going to be, but finally we can add the wither roses to our flower collection. And with that, we have just one more flower to go to complete our collection, and that is the torch flower. This one is also pretty complicated, since the only way to get torch flowers is from sniffers, which I don't have yet. So first things first, I crafted a few brushes, which believe it or not, I've never made before. And with those in hand, I made my way over to a warm ocean and began searching for some ocean ruins. They have suspicious sand that we can use the brush on, and there's a 6.7% chance that it'll give us a sniffer egg. And I got super lucky, as I got a sniffer egg on just the 3rd block that I brushed. I guess that's only fair though, after the terrible luck we had getting skulls earlier. We're going to need at least 2 eggs though, and after excavating the entire thing, I was only able to find 1, so I began searching for a second ruin. It took a little while, but I eventually found one. I brushed all of the suspicious sand, but unfortunately, I wasn't able to find a second sniffer egg. No biggie though, I continued searching and eventually hit the jackpot as I found 6 ocean ruins all in one big group. Not exactly sure how rare this is, but I'm definitely not complaining. With an abundance of blocks to brush, I had no trouble at all finding a second sniffer egg. So much so that I even found a 3rd one. On top of that, I was able to get a bunch of pottery shards, which is pretty fun since we should be able to use them to decorate our base. I also found a treasure map, so after I was done excavating everything, I located the buried treasure and collected even more loot. We had everything we needed and more at this point, so I flew back home. And taking a look at what we got, I'm pretty happy with that little adventure. Instead of just throwing the sniffer eggs in some boring old pen, I think it's about time that we do some building and make a proper spot for them on our island. I want to incorporate it into the new village we're building this episode, so let's just go ahead and chop down all the trees to make room for the sniffer enclosure and all the other builds. It's kind of insane to think this is the last empty area on the island. We have a nice open space now, and as a bonus, we have a bunch of logs so that we can add to our storage room. With the land now prepped, let's get to work crafting all the materials we're going to need, like oak trapdoors, spruce fences, and waxed copper grates. We got pretty lucky and pretty much had everything already in our storage room, but I did have to grow an azalea tree since we need some flowering azalea leaves. I also took a quick trip over to our windmill and grabbed some moss blocks from the moss farm that's hidden underneath it. I then went over to a mesa and collected several stacks of light gray terracotta, which is the last item that we were missing. And just like that, we have everything that we need to build our sniffer enclosure. And I think it would be fun to attach it to a house, so I built that first using granite, packed mud, light gray terracotta, and dripstone blocks. For the roof, I just went with dark oak, but since the house is on a slight diagonal, I think the shape turned out fairly interesting. At the back of the house, I built the actual pen for the sniffers using a variety of leaves and short grass. After that, I built a simple entrance for the pen using walls and spruce wood. At the front of the house, let's build a cover above the entrance using campfires and a lantern. Beside that, I think a planter box would look nice, so I started by placing down some podzol, which I then surrounded with a mixture of pale oak and diorite slabs. I eventually want to put torch flowers in here, but for now, a few bushes will do. And there was a bit of an open space beside the build, so I filled it with a cart that's transporting some dried kelp blocks. This little house is looking pretty awesome if I do say so myself, but let's finally place down the sniffer eggs inside of the enclosure. I think it's going to take a while for them to hatch, so in the meantime, let's go check in on my real life cats. This is my totally shameless segment where I attempt to guilt trip all of you into liking the video by showing you my cats. For real though, the biggest way that you can support this Let's Play series is by giving the video a like, so if you're able to take a second to do it, I would really appreciate it. Getting back to Minecraft, I want to continue working on our new village, but before we get too carried away, let's swing by our villager trading hall. I'm nearly out of food, so let's purchase some golden carrots from our farmer. I want to build a pond at the center of our new village, so I grabbed a bunch of different blocks like tuff, cobblestone, regular stone, andesite, and pale moss. And I also picked up a bunch of different natural blocks to decorate the pond with. I want to use mud for the bottom of the pond, which thanks to past me, I already have a ton of from last episode. So using that, along with all the other blocks we just grabbed, we should be good to go. Before we start building the pond though, let's go check in on the sniffer eggs. It looks like they're starting to crack, so they should be hatching any time now. That's super exciting, but while we continue to wait, let's begin digging out a hole for the pond. This is all custom terrain that we've built in the past, which is making it a bit trickier. And I even ran into our old villager breeder, so I had to move them over a bit so that they weren't in the way. A little annoying to deal with, but the perimeter of the pond is all dug out now. And checking in on our sniffers again, it looks like they've hatched. I've never seen these in survival before, and I have to say they look pretty cute, but also kind of derpy. In the best way possible though. I'm pretty sure they need to fully grow up before they can dig torch flower seeds for us, so while we continue to wait, let's go finish the pond. To add some interest to the outer edge, I built several large boulders and then blended them into the ground using moss blocks, short grass, and bushes. With those in place, I got to work using mud to create the actual bottom of the pond. And I think 4 to 5 blocks should be plenty deep enough. Once I was happy with the shape, I mixed in some muddy mangrove roots just for a tiny bit of texture variation, and then I added a few small rocks scattered around using tough slabs. And with that, the pond is finally starting to look like an actual pond. It's just missing, water, so let's add that next. And I find the easiest way to do this is to start from the bottom and then go layer by layer. I also made sure to waterlog all of the slabs so we don't get any weird pockets of air. And now that the pond is full of water and looking good, I took it one step further by adding some algae along the edge, as well as firefly bushes and sugarcane to make the entire thing feel a lot lusher. And before I forget, let's also add a few lily pads to tie it all together. And we might as well go ahead and detail the pond bottom using bone meal as well as sea pickles. And with that, I'm happy to call the pond finished. And I'm even more happy to say that our sniffers have finally grown up. Looks like they've already dug up some pitcher pods. I've been looking at the wiki a lot since I haven't done this yet, but I'm pretty sure they dig up both these and the torch flower seeds. Anyways, I think the best place to grow these is going to be our greenhouse. Currently, there's just a bunch of beetroots in here, which, let's be honest, are kinda useless, so let's just get rid of all of those and plant our pitcher pods instead. While we wait for the sniffers to dig up some torch flower seeds for us, let's build a small stream going from the pond down to the river. I began by building a few small boulders, then wove the stream through them. And a fun little touch I added was having the stream split around one of the larger ones. Checking in on our sniffers again, it looks like we finally got some torch flower seeds, which is absolutely awesome. I went over to the greenhouse and surprisingly the pitcher pods had already grown. However, I didn't realize they don't drop seeds when you harvest them, and I'm guessing the torch flowers are the same deal. And if you remember, the goal is to collect a stack of each flower, and I don't really feel like waiting around for each and every seed, so I think we need to automate the seed gathering process. It hopefully shouldn't be too hard to set up though. All we need to do is dig underneath the sniffers and build a platform below them. It's a little cramped, and I kinda wish we did this from the get-go, but oh well, what are you gonna do? Once the platform was in place, I made a simple collection system using a double chest and a couple of hoppers. After that, I weaved rails back and forth on top of the entire platform, placing powered rails too ever so often just to ensure the minecarts won't get stuck. And after powering all those rails with levers, the last thing to do was add a hopper minecart. The hopper minecart will collect all of the seeds, and then they'll end up in the output chest. I made it so we can access the chest from inside of the house, so just to clean it up a little bit, I replaced the ground with oak planks and hid the double chest using a couple of spruce trapdoors. And I want to say that it's working since we already have a pitcher pod in here. I planted it in the greenhouse and then harvested the torch flowers that grew. That means we now have every flower, but I'm gonna wait until we get a full stack before calling it official, since that was the rule that we set for ourselves. I checked the output chest once again, and it had a couple of torch flower seeds in it, so I used them to breed the sniffers. The more we have, the faster we'll get seeds, so I think it's a good idea. What's also a good idea is getting back to work on the village, since we still have an absurd amount of stuff to build. I think it'd be best to get the pathways in next, so I swung by our starter house and grabbed all of the blocks that we're going to need. After that, I spent some time digging out the ground to make room for all of the pathways. I pretty much killed my shovel and it looks pretty weird right now, but let's just trust the process and place in the actual path. We have a really solid base for our village now, so I think it's about time to build more houses. Swinging by our storage room once again, let's lock in and gather up all the materials that we can. I scavenged all my chests and crafted a bunch of different items. And once I exhausted the materials in our storage room, I took a trip underground because somehow, in a world over 600 days old, I don't have a single block of cobblestone left in the house. Another block I'm pretty much completely out of is the new pale oak wood, so back at the surface, I spent some time growing and chopping down a few of those trees. Next, I took a trip over to the villager trading hall again and purchased some bricks from the masons. I plan on detailing the outside of the houses with short grass, so I decided to just take a minute to make a bunch of it. And I just went ahead and gathered a decent amount of extra since I use it all the time. As nice as it is having extra materials in our storage room, I'm quickly running out of space, so back at our house, I took a minute to add 2 new barrels to our storage room. As convenient as it would be to make a larger storage room, it's kinda cozy and fun trying to fit everything into our original starter house. Anyways, using the stuff we just got, I crafted some flower pots, a variety of different pale oak blocks, and a few mossy cobblestone walls. There's still a decent amount of materials we need though, so heading back out into the world, I swung by our farming district and harvested all of the cocoa beans. I then used them to make brown dye, which I needed to make a few brown candles. After that, I chopped down several dark oak trees, even stripping some of the logs while I was at it to save us time later. And just one last thing I had to gather was a few oak leaves. Kinda crazy that it took 6 shulker boxes to store everything, but we now have all the blocks we need to build 4 brand new houses in the village. Getting straight to it, I began constructing the first one using a similar block palette as the Sniffer house to hopefully tie the village together a bit more. I did switch it up though by also including a second floor where I was able to include some highlights using pale oak. To bring some color into the build, I placed alternating lilacs and peonies in some planter boxes. And since we have them now, I added some wither roses in front of a couple of the windows. After planting even more flowers at the back of the house, I added a few lanterns to light up the build. To create a bench, I placed down and extinguished 3 campfires, placed a spruce sign on either side, and then finished it off with some spruce trapdoors. And with that, house number 1 is officially done. For the next house, I decided to challenge myself and build it on a perfect 45-degree angle. I feel like I really struggle with building on diagonals, but I guess the only way to get better is to try. The final little details I added were a lantern by the front entrance, and then I filled in this large planter with both ferns and orange tulips. This is one of those rare cases for me though, where I think the back of the house looks better than the front. I'm a little brain fried after piecing that diagonal house together, so for this next one, let's go for something a bit simpler. I used the same block palette for the walls as the first two houses, so it feels in place, and then made a super simple roof using spruce. Moving straight into the fourth house, I went with a similar shape as the Sniffer enclosure house. I tried to switch it up though by incorporating bricks into the walls, as well as adding lots of leaves and flowers around the outside to give it a lush and colorful vibe. Finally, this area is starting to feel like an actual village. I was really curious to see how many seeds our farm generated while we were building, so I checked the chest, and it ended up having 42 torchflower seeds and 32 pitcher pods. I used some of the seeds to breed the sniffers again, and placed down the eggs so they can hatch. With the remaining seeds in hand, I headed over to the greenhouse and planted everything. Once these grow, we're going to be super close to our goal of getting an entire stack of every flower in the game. I still want to add a few more houses to the village, so in preparation, I went down underground and began mining up a few stacks of tough blocks. Maybe one day my addiction to this block will end, but today is not that day. While I was down here, I even ran into some diamonds, which is pretty nice. Something else I bumped into was a trial chamber. We haven't found one of these yet in this world, so I couldn't help but explore it. We definitely need to come back here though in the future with some ominous potions to get the really good loot. Truthfully, I'm more excited about the fact that we now have a giant supply of copper that we can use for building. So while I was down here, I took the chance to gather several stacks of both oxidized and regular copper blocks. After that, I explored a bit more and ended up finding my very first bolt armor trim, which is pretty cool. I also found this super random barrel that had like a million cakes in it, which I thought was pretty funny. But on that note, I think it's about time to head back up to the surface, since I'm really eager to continue working on our village. We got quite a few good items down below though. I'm really happy that we ran into that. And because why not, let's put one of the cakes in our bedroom for a totally healthy bedtime snack. Anyways, let's not get too distracted and get back to work on getting together all the materials we need to build a few more houses. And since we got a ton of copper in the trial chamber, I figure we might as well use it for the roofs. Conveniently, we can use our axe to DH the copper to whatever stage we need it, allowing us to craft a wide variety of copper blocks. Trial chambers are seriously such a lifesaver when it comes to building with copper. In the end, I spent a little over an hour going through all of our chests and crafting tons of different items, but we should now have enough materials to expand our village once again with 3 brand new houses. For the first one, I went with a fairly small design. I used mossy cobblestone, tuff, and pale moss for the walls, and then made the roof out of copper. And let's finish off the build with some final details, like a lantern above the entrance and an allium in a flower pot on each side. I also added a covered area at the back, so let's detail that too with a random pile of storage. For the next house, I went with pretty much an identical block palette as the last one, but changed it up by building it on a slight diagonal. At the back of the house, I planted some rose bushes in a planter box. Then, to add more greenery, I hung glowberries as well as rooted dirt from the roof. I also did the same thing at the front, and just in case you didn't know, you can use shears to stop the glowberries from growing, which is seriously such a nice feature to have. And the last little detail I added for this one was a small pile of hay, which I detailed with bamboo slabs. For the third and final house, I stuck with the same block palette again, but challenged myself once more by making another perfect 45-degree angle house. Getting straight into the final details, I started by adding a lantern by the front entrance. At the back, I added yet another lantern, and then created a pile of hay using the same technique as some of our earlier ones. Last but not least, I filled in the planter box with blue orchids and cornflowers for a nice pop of blue. With these 3 new houses in, our village is feeling a lot more grand. It took a decent amount of time to build them, but that's not a terrible thing since it gave our farm a chance to generate more seeds. We got enough to completely fill in both plots inside of the greenhouse, which is awesome, since once they grow, we should definitely have over a stack of torch flowers, and then we can finally call our flower collection complete. In the meantime, I want to build tons of custom trees all throughout the village. I think I have all the raw materials I need in my storage room except for leaves, so let's repair our silk touch hoe and go collect some. I went a little ways away from our base and massacred a forest to get plenty of oak and birch leaves. Nearby there was also a taiga biome, so I collected some spruce leaves too. After that, I went home and made a variety of different walls as well as pale oak fences and gates. Next, I went over to our windmill again and grabbed a few more stacks of moss blocks. And I'm somehow out of dark oak again, so I cut down a few trees and got more logs. I feel like I might be missing something, but hopefully this should be everything that we need. To keep it interesting, I mixed spruce, birch, and oak trees together to fill in empty patches and turn the area around the village into a forest of sorts. I especially love how the trees around the stream turned out. They complement each other super well, and just the terrain overall looks super awesome. I even went ahead and built trees closer to some of our older builds to try to blend the regions together. I also made a few trees closer to the actual houses themselves since we had the room. I'm still trying to get better at building custom trees, but regardless, I think they helped loads with making our village feel more immersive and alive. However, I noticed there were still a few spots looking kind of empty, so let's fix that by adding some smaller decorations. The first thing I built was a pottery stand where I had the chance to display some of the pottery shards we got down in the trowel chamber. After that, I built a lamppost surrounded by some storage to help fill out the center of one of the larger pathways. And I think this next one might be my favorite, a cozy little pumpkin cart that added some much needed color to the area. Next, I built a couple of planter boxes using pale oak and filled them with bushes and sweet berries. Also, while I was in this area, I built a small pathway leading to the storage area at the back of the diagonal house. The final decoration I built was a small well, where again I displayed one of the really cool pottery shards. Switching gears, let's head over to the greenhouse once again and harvest all of the torch flowers. With these ones, plus some that I harvested earlier, we finally have over a stack. Truthfully, I did not expect it to take nearly this long, but we now have a stack of every single flower in the game. The hoarder in me really just wants to store the shulker box in some vault or something, but I think it'll be a lot more fun to display at least one of each in the village, as that was my plan from the get-go. So first off, let's finally fill in this planter box on the Sniffer house with some of the torch flowers. And even though I'm not including them in my flower list, since I don't think they're technically flowers, I dotted a few of the pitcher pods around the Sniffer pen itself. After that, I got to work adding the rest of the flowers all around the village. I'm not going to show me placing every single one, but trust me, they're all there. While I was in gardening mode, I also added leaf litter, bushes, shortgrass, and several other vegetation blocks to help blend everything together and take the area to the next level. My favorite way to showcase this is by taking a look at some of the before and afters, which is pretty satisfying to say the least. But with that done, I want to take a minute to update our map so we can see exactly how much stuff that we've built this episode. I seriously couldn't be happier with how this island has turned out. Just the layout and all of the builds and different regions have come together so perfectly. As satisfying and fun as it is to see the island completely filled with builds, I'm really excited to keep expanding onto the mainland, so be sure to let me know if you have any cool build projects that we can work on. But just while we're in our house here, I did want to take a second to add one of the bolt armor trims we found in the trowel chamber to our helmet. So let's add one of these bolt trims. We'll do just diamond so it matches the rest, and we can just do that just like that. I think I'm pretty happy with that. Our armor is looking pretty sweet now. I want to tour everything that we built with the shaders on, but before we get too carried away, there's just one more quick thing that I need to do. We built this market stall last episode, and I asked all of you for some name ideas, and the one that I really liked was Riverside Market. So I just want to quickly name that there. We'll also add some white dye and a bit of the glow ink. But with that, that's looking super awesome, and thank you very much for that awesome name idea. Getting started on the tour, before we even enter the village, we have this super cool pottery stand. I've never made one of these before, but I think it turned out really cool, so I'm definitely going to add more to some of my future builds. I really like all these custom trees that we built. I think it made the area so much more immersive and just fun to walk through. Of course, it had to rain right as we're doing the tour, but honestly, it's kind of cozy, so I think I'm just going to roll with it. This house here is kind of the only reason that this village actually has a kind of purpose, since we have all of our sniffers in here digging up the seeds, and I'm really glad that we built that kind of automatic system so that we can keep getting seeds in there, and then whenever we want to use torch flowers or the pitcher pods in future builds, we should just be able to grab some there, plant them in the greenhouse, and be good to go. Let's head out of this pen here and take a look at some of the other houses. They're honestly kind of on the simpler side, but we added tons of smaller details to really bring them to life, like this little hay bale over here, and I especially love this pond at the center of the village, and one of my favorite little builds of the entire project was this stream coming off of the pond and down into the river, as this entire terrain just turned out really cool with all the boulders and like how the stream splits off into two directions here, with even more kind of smaller boulders scattered around the edge. Definitely had a lot of fun building that one. A majority of the houses in the village were built on diagonals, which was a tough challenge, but I think it helped make them a lot more interesting, and I think I'm maybe slowly getting the hang of them, so I don't know, I should probably keep trying to build more. Heading further down this path leads us over to one of my favorite details, which is this little pumpkin cart. I thought it was super cute and kind of fun. I of course had to add my classic detail of candles and the sea pickles on top to look like bigger stems, but yeah, really fun and glad we added this one in. We should be able to see these last houses quite a bit better now that it stopped raining. This one here I think turned out pretty fun. It's the only house in the village that has 2 floors, but since it kind of matches some of the other houses on the island, I still think it looks in place. I just had to point out the fact that these are the only 2 wither roses that I used in the entire village, so all that time and effort spent farming skulls and everything was just for this little detail. So let me know, do you think it was worth it? Jokes aside, this next house is definitely one of the kind of more unique ones. I do like this glazed terracotta detail on the side, and I tried to use like gates to sort of smooth out the roof. Not really sure if it works, but I tried it anyways. But I do like these details kind of tucked around the back. I tried to do these planter boxes sort of looking like tomato plants, and then just back here we have more storage, a little pathway connecting to the main one. So yeah, just really cozy vibes back here. Next to that, we have 2 smaller houses. So this little one here with the copper roof, nice little details at the back. Then we have this super small one. This is definitely the most basic house in the village. And then over here we have one more diagonal house. This one is the only one that I really used bricks in. Might have bricks in some of the chimneys like up there, but for the actual walls, only this one does have the bricks. This well design here is probably my favorite of all the wells that we've built on this island, just with the decorated pot here. And then I really do like the combination of the pale oak fences with the cherry top. It's kind of out there a little bit, but I think it does look pretty cool actually. But I think that pretty much wraps up all the stuff that we made in this episode. As always, if you want to explore this world for yourself, you can get the world download on my Patreon. And be sure to let me know what other projects you want to see going on in this world now that we have the island completely filled in. But as always, thank you so much for watching and happy building.